Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. That is, of course, me, Kyle Brenchley, in the house on this cloudy, overcast Wednesday. Fall is in full swing. We got the sign, we got the candle, we got the Rogue One posters. Welcome. If this is your first time listening to the sound of my voice, you're in the right place. Fan Talk is a podcast by the fans, for the fans. This is a podcast where we look at the world of sports, the oftentimes complex world of sports from our perspective as fans. We all have opinions, we all have foresights, we all have ideas, and this is the place where they are shared, where they are heard, where they are projected into the world. Welcome. Fan Talk's a podcast that you can find anywhere you get your podcast. I also upload on YouTube. I enjoy the video element. I often share a lot of screenshots and different things like that. But to all my audio listeners, you are just fine. All you need to do is hear the sound of my voice as we break down the complex stories of sports here from the perspective of a fan. Let's jump right into it. Of course, it being Wednesday morning when I am recording this episode, last night, the college football playoff rankings were released, and these are the updated ones. Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M all remain in the top three. They're all still undefeated. They're all pretty much guaranteed a first-round bye. Now, remember, the top four seeds get a first-round bye, which means that they don't have to play the first game. They get to wait a week, essentially. Again, there's 12 teams that get in. The top four get a first-round bye. The remaining 8 play each other in the first round. Now, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, they're projected to be one of the three of those 4 teams that get the first round bye. A new team that has entered the mix is Georgia. Originally, it was Alabama who was number 4. Of course, they lost to my Oklahoma Sooners at home in Tuscaloosa. Boomer Sooner. Alabama dropped all the way to 10. Georgia vaulted themselves up to number 4 after a dominant win over the Texas Longhorns. So Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Georgia would have a first round bye if the college football playoff started today. Let's take a look at some of the other teams. There is a little bit of controversy, a little bit of room for discussion here on why some teams are ranked the way they are. Again, there's still 2 weeks left in the college football season. This is not the college football playoff set in stone rankings. If it started today, these are where the teams are ranked. Texas Tech moved up, Ole Miss moved up, Oregon moved up, Oklahoma moved up 3 spots. They're now projected to get in. Again, remember, I was talking about this last week on what your favorite team needs to do to get into the college football playoff. For all my Oklahoma fans, I was saying you need to win out and hope that Ole Miss or Georgia or some team ahead of you loses. Oregon, Notre Dame, you beat Alabama. That was great. But some of these other teams still won. USC coming in strong at 8-2. They're a team to watch. Miami 8-2. We'll talk about them in a second. But that is why you moved up, because you beat Alabama. Alabama lost. A couple other teams won, but you needed them to lose. So there's still a lot of work to do. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you got to take care of business against Missouri and LSU and hopefully get some help. So that's why Oklahoma moved up. Notre Dame stayed at number 9. Alabama dropped all the way to number 10. BYU 11, Utah 12, some local teams, and Miami 13, Vanderbilt 14, USC 15. So those are a couple of teams that are on the outside looking in currently. If the college football playoff started today, this is just a projection of who would be in. So as I mentioned before, the top 4, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Georgia. Number 5 would be Texas Tech. They would host Tulane. Tulane is coming out of the American Conference. Again, they would win that conference. 5 spots go to the teams that win the conferences. So Tulane would win their conference. They would be the 12 seed. Oklahoma would be 8. They would host number 9, Notre Dame. Ole Miss would be 6. They would host number 11, Miami, Florida. 7, Oregon would host number 10, Alabama, which would mean that 1-loss BYU would not get in. 2-loss Utah would not get in. 2-loss Vanderbilt, 2-loss USC would not get in. Let's break this down. Let's talk about some biases that are creeping into how they determine which teams get in. Now, there's a lot of vagueness and ambiguity in how these teams are determined. It almost reminds me, and it's not exactly the same, but it reminds me of how teams are selected for the NCAA college basketball tournament. Now, in football, obviously, you play a lot less games, and so losses hurt you a lot more in football than they do in college basketball. In college basketball, they break it down in a couple quadrants, and I have videos that explain this, so go check those out. But essentially, the tougher your opponent, the higher the quadrant they are. So if they're a quad 1 team, that means they're a really, really good team. If they're a quad 4 team, it means they suck. So they have that system to kind of help them out in college basketball. In college football, they don't quite have that. It's not exactly like that, but they do look at wins and losses, and they need to figure out a better way of doing this because there's some controversy around Notre Dame being number 9, 8-2, with their 2 losses coming to Texas A&M and Miami. Now, Miami is also 8-2 and have 2 losses, but they are ranked all the way down 13th. So they are 4 spots behind Notre Dame. They are projected to get in some people's brackets, but not all. And if they don't win the ACC, then they're not getting in. So why are they ranked below Notre Dame? Now, again, precursor, it doesn't matter necessarily, actually, what they're ranked today. It matters what they're ranked at the end of the year, right? Because today, who cares if you're 13 rather than 9, you know? It's a ranking, right? It's not the end all be all. Let's put this into perspective. So they have the same record. Notre Dame lost to Miami. So Miami has the head to head and they have the same record. So instead of looking at head to head, the committee is like, well, Notre Dame has lost. Their 2 losses have come against really good teams. They lost at Miami and they lost to Texas A&M, who is now ranked number 3 in the entire country. And then they've beaten, number 20 USC and then number 22 Pitt and some other teams that frankly aren't that impressive. So really Notre Dame doesn't have that impressive of a resume. They lost to good teams, which is expected. If you want to be a great team instead of a good team, you win those games. But they lost those games to good teams, so they're a good team. Who have they played? Purdue, they suck. Arkansas, they suck. Boise State, they're decent, but they're a Mountain West team. NC State's not good. USC, that's a good win. Boston College is having their worst year in a long time. Navy's a good team, not a great team, good team. They beat them pretty good, and they beat Pitt. So they have a couple good wins. They don't have any great wins. I'd say maybe their only great win is against USC. They beat them by 2 scores by 10 points. But other than that, they don't really have that impressive of a resume, in my opinion. Now, am I saying they're a bad team? No, they're a very fantastic team. Jeremiah Love, in my opinion, should be in the Heisman conversation. CJ Carr has been playing pretty well at quarterback. It's a good team. Malachi Fields is a fantastic wide receiver. They're a good team. And, in a perfect world, all good teams would make the playoff. But that is not what this is. This is a 12-team format where the best of the best gets in. Now, let's look at Miami's resume. They have the same record as I mentioned before. They have the head-to-head over Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame. Let's look at their resume. They beat a South Florida team. South Florida was ranked at the time. They're no longer ranked. Still a decent win. They beat Florida. Florida is not that good, but they're an SEC team. Florida State, they beat Florida State when Florida State was ranked. Florida State is no longer ranked. Their losses come to Louisville and SMU. And then they beat NC State, Syracuse, and Stanford. So their resume is not that much better, really. Arguably, they've played maybe slightly better teams because they have South Florida, Florida, and Florida State. But they beat Notre Dame, who was 6 at the time when they played. So they have the head-to-head against Notre Dame. They've played some decent teams, not great teams. Neither team has a fantastic resume, but when it comes down to it, will head-to-head be more important than your strength of losses? We talk about strength of victory, but strength of losses, because that's what the committee is saying, is Notre Dame, their losses have been against really good teams. They've lost to Texas A&M, and they lost to a very formidable Miami team. And maybe I would buy into that if their second loss, let's say Notre Dame lost to Texas A&M, and let's say for some reason somehow they played Ole Miss or Oregon and they lost to one of those teams, then I'd be like, okay, that argument is valid. But since that second loss was against Miami, who is also 8-2, I just don't see how Notre Dame can be ahead of Miami in the rankings. Of course, we'll see how it plays out because Notre Dame is an independent team. They're not in a conference. So they might steal one of those at-large bids. Miami probably has to win the ACC to get in. I mean, it's looking pretty good right now. Georgia Tech might be their biggest foe as Louisville went down, as well as Pittsburgh. I mean, it's looking good for Miami. I still think they have to win the ACC title game. They're not getting in otherwise, especially since they have 2 losses. So that's one thing that people are a little touchy about. Let's also talk about our local teams. Now, this is playing into your team bias. Now, I'm not just going to say the committee has bias. The committee does like Notre Dame. The committee likes teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, teams that are in the SEC Big Ten. They like those teams because in their minds, they believe that they are more competitive and play harder schedules. And even if they lose to teams more often, if they have 2 losses, then that's better than a 1-loss BYU team, a 1-loss Georgia Tech team, a 2-loss Tulane team, right? So they view their competition a lot more heavily. So let's talk about our local teams at BYU and Utah. BYU currently at 9-1 and not projected to get into the college football playoff. Now the committee's probably like, oh, we'll just take one team from the Big 12, and that's whoever will win the Big 12 championship game. But I'm not sure because this makes it very interesting because what if Texas Tech and BYU square off in the Big 12 championship and BYU wins this time around? Do they take Texas Tech as an at-large team, or does Texas Tech get the boot? It makes it very interesting because it goes back to this point that I've made about college basketball and the March Madness bracket selection. I think it's such a daunting task to put 68 teams into a field and to give them a seed and to put them, it's very, very hard. So I'm not going to underline that. But I think sometimes people get it in their mind, oh, this team could be a good 9 seed. And they kind of just leave it there and they don't go revisit because there's just so many other teams and other things to consider. I almost wonder if this is one of those scenarios where they're like, we're going to have the winner of the Big 12 get in, and we're not going to take another Big 12 at-large team because there's so many good SEC teams. There's Notre Dame. There's a couple Big 10 teams that could get in. So I wonder if that's going to happen, where the winner of the Big 12 gets in and the loser does not get in, even though the loser would have 2 losses and some 2-loss Big 10 and SEC teams get in. See, and then again, there's more to look at. They'll have to look at strength of schedule. Apparently, they're looking at strength of losses. They'll have to look at head-to-heads. In my opinion, I think they should. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But let's just look at the facts. BYU's 9-1. They're not projected to get in. Utah's 8-2. They're not projected to get in. I said this last week. I think the only way Utah gets in is if they win the Big 12. They're not getting in as a 2-loss team. Even if they blow out Kansas and Kansas State, they're not getting in unless they win the Big 12. I think, unfortunately, the same is with BYU. I think BYU has to win the Big 12. Unless somehow Alabama loses, unless Oklahoma loses, unless Notre Dame loses, unless any of these teams with 2 losses, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, even Miami, if any of these teams lose, even USC, Vanderbilt, then BYU has a shot. But if every team takes care of business, I mean, like Alabama's got an easy schedule to finish out the year. A lot of these teams have cupcake schedules to finish out the year and are projected to win out. So BYU might not get in. And I'm not saying they're not deserving. I think there's a ton of teams that are deserving to get into this 12-team format. That's just the nature of the 12-team format. Everybody thinks they deserve to be in, right? There's only a limited spots. And if 5 of the spots have to go to conference champions and the top 4 get a first-round bye, then there's not a lot of room for error. A lot to think about. It got me thinking about the past and some of the, back when there was just 4 teams and some of the controversial decisions there. I'm thinking to the 2021 season of college football, where Cincinnati got in as the 4 seed out of the, at the time, they were in the American Conference, but they are now obviously in the Big 12. Cincinnati coming out of, or getting into the playoff as an undefeated team over an 11-1 Notre Dame. Now, there was a lot of controversy here because people were like, Cincinnati didn't play anybody. Their schedule was an American Conference schedule. So they beat Tulsa. They beat Tulane, who is good now but wasn't good then. They beat Temple. You know, all these teams that are not considered good football teams, but they went 13-. So the committee is like, we are going to reward them for going 13-0, and we're going to leave a Notre Dame team that is 11-1 out, even though Notre Dame is probably a better team than Cincinnati and may have put up a better fight against number 1 Alabama. Alabama blew out Cincinnati by 3 touchdowns. So that happened in 2021. Fast forward a little bit to the 2023 season. Now, the 2023 season was quite interesting because it was a flip. The committee changed their minds because Florida State went 13-0. And Florida State coming out of the ACC, good conference, not quite as bad as the American, but not quite up to par with the Big Ten, with the SEC in a lot of people's opinions. So Florida State goes 13-0. They don't lose a single game all year. But their quarterback Jordan Travis, goes out with injury. And now, is that something that can be taken into consideration? I don't know. That's one of those gray areas that they need to smooth out. But Jordan Travis got injured and was going to miss the game. He was going to miss the college football playoff. He wasn't going to play. So their backup was going to go in and, who knows what was going to happen. So the committee is like, okay, let's put a 12-1 Alabama team in instead of a 13-0 Florida State team. Now, Alabama got in because they beat Georgia in the final game of the season. So Alabama wasn't projected to get in. Georgia was the number 1 seed pretty much all year, loses to Alabama. Georgia misses the playoff. Alabama gets in. See, this was an absolutely crazy playoff scenario with only 4 teams. I think this is the year that really turned the tides and made the committee be like, we need 12 teams because we left out a 12-1 Georgia team that was undefeated all the way up until the very last game. That's absolutely insane. But we're not talking about Georgia. We're talking about how Florida State went 13-0. Their star quarterback got injured in the end of year regular season game. Like at the very last, in the 11th hour, he gets injured. They go 13-0. They leave Florida State out. They put Alabama in. They put Texas in. Washington and Michigan were both undefeated, but they put a Texas team and an Alabama team, both 12-1, over an undefeated Florida State team. So there's a lot of controversy there about Florida State went undefeated. They did everything they needed to do. They won their conference. They went undefeated. They were 13-0, but they had an injury to their quarterback, and the committee took that into consideration. So is that something the committee can always do? Can the committee look at something like, look at these what ifs? That's essentially what they were doing. What if Jordan Travis is out, their backup's in, they probably won't be as good. See, and there's the argument there. What do? Do you look at their resume? Do you look at what they have done? Or do you consider the what ifs? I just don't think it's very plausible for you to consider the what ifs. In the case of 2021, Cincinnati went 13-0. And they took the resume. They were like, they went 13-0. They took that over an 11-1 Notre Dame team. But then in 2023, there was the 13-0 Florida State team, but they took the 12-1 Texas, the 12-1 Alabama, because Florida State's quarterback was injured. So bottom line is the committee needs to have a very clear idea, very clear requirements, very clear criteria on what teams need to do to get in and what they will do to judge teams that are trying to get in. Now that it's 12 teams, the name of the game shifts a little bit. Some say it makes it easier. I say it makes it harder. But as it stands, teams like BYU, who are 9-1, might miss the college football playoff because there is bias towards teams like Notre Dame, who are 8-2, who have quality losses. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. I know there's a lot of talk around this, and it's very exciting, and it's super fun. Again, there's still 2 weeks left in the college football season, so this is not set in stone, and it could very well shift up. But let me know down below what you guys think about all of this. All right, let's shift our focus to the NFL and make our weekly picks for the NFL, ESPN, Pigskin, Pick'em. Join the podcast group. It's down in the description. You know the drill. We are in week 12 of the NFL, and it's going to be a fun one. Thursday night football kicks off. The Buffalo Bills visit the Houston Texans. Now, everyone is going with the Bills in this one, but let me bring something up to you. Do you remember a couple weeks ago, the Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs at home, and everyone was like, all right, the Bills, Josh Allen is king. The Bills are going to win it all. And then the next week, they went and lost to the Miami Dolphins 30-13. They didn't just lose, they got blown out by the Miami Dolphins 30-13. And then the Bills come back and win another exciting game at home over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very good team led by Baker Mayfield. And now they go on the road on short week against the Houston Texans, who have arguably one of the best defenses, top 3 for sure in the league. Yes, I know they don't have CJ Stroud. I know they still have Joe Mixon. I know they just barely beat the Tennessee Titans by the skin of their teeth. But this Texans team is at home. And the Bills have just come off a high again. I think the Texans upset and beat them Thursday Night Football. It's a short week. The Bills go on the road. It's tough defense. It's hard to replicate a 6-touchdown performance, Josh Allen. Prove me wrong. Give me the Texans in this one. Steelers at Bears. This one should be very fascinating. The Bears are 7-3. That's right. Shall I say it again? The Bears are 7-3. Pittsburgh Steelers 6-4, looking to have another winning season under Mike Tomlin. Aaron Rodgers having an up and down year. I'm actually going to go with the Steelers in this one to upset the Bears at home. I think the Bears are playing very well under Ben Johnson, but this is a game where I just see the Steelers winning, so I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. Patriots and Bengals. Give me the Patriots in this one. Patriots and Broncos, of course, fighting for the number 1 seed in the AFC. This is a game the Patriots will win. Give me the Pats. Giants at Lions. Give me the Lions in this one. The Lions were stifled, absolutely stomped by the Philadelphia Eagles and their defense on Sunday Night Football. The Giants won't do that to them. Give me the Lions. Vikings and Packers. The NFC North matchup. Purple versus green. Give me the Pack attack in this one. J.J. McCarthy is trending downwards, which is not good for Minnesota Vikings fans. Give me the Packers in this one. Seahawks and Titans. I like the Seahawks in this one. The Seahawks were a missed field goal away from winning in SoFi Stadium against the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, Sam Darnold threw 4 interceptions. The fact that you can throw 4 interceptions and almost win a game tells me that this team is good enough to win, especially against the Tennessee Titans. Colts and Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one to bounce back. The Chiefs are a very good team. Obviously, the Denver Broncos took them down, but the Chiefs are at home. This is a must-win for them. They're currently 5-5. They lose to the Indianapolis Colts in this one. They go to 5-6, and there's a very good chance they don't make the playoffs. But I do think they win this game and still somehow sneak into the playoffs. Give me the Chiefs. Jets and Ravens. Give me the Ravens in this one. The Ravens are trajecting upwards. 5-5. Lamar Jackson's back. They're hosting the Jets. Not much to say here, but give me the Ravens. Toilet Bowl of the week, the Cleveland Browns and the Las Vegas Raiders. Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders versus Geno Smith? Wow, that's really an NFL quarterback matchup. Yep, sure is. I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one. Not much to say about this one. Jaguars and Cardinals. Now, I'm actually leaning towards the Cardinals in this one. Will I be bold enough to make that pick? I don't know. Jags are heavily favored in this one. I think I am going to go with the Jaguars in this one, especially since they just dismantled the Chargers. But the Jags struggle at home or struggle on the road. And the Cardinals, if they have Jacoby Brissett dealing, it could be a very close game, but I am going to go with the Jags. Eagles at Cowboys. Give me the Eagles in this one. Eagles defense is soaring high. The offense is sputtering a little bit. But look for the Eagles to get after Dak Prescott. I think the Cowboys will score more points than people will suspect. They won't be like the Lions who only put up 6. I think the Cowboys will score a couple touchdowns and it'll be close, but give me the Eagles to win this game. Falcons and Saints. I am going to go with the New Orleans Saints in this one. Michael Penix Jr. is out for the year with a knee injury, so that means Kirk Cousins will take over. Not saying Kirk Cousins is incapable. He for sure is. But the Saints played well the last time they played. They're just coming off a bye week. They beat the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Give me the Saints in this one to upset the Atlanta Falcons and to move to 3-8. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams. Now the Buccaneers have an absolutely brutal schedule. Holy cow, playing Buffalo and then having to travel across the country to play the Los Angeles Rams. This is the Sunday night matchup. Rams coming off a huge win against the Seattle Seahawks to take the lead in the AFC West. Give me the Rams in this one. Monday Night Football. Carolina Panthers and the San Francisco 49ers. When was the last time we saw Carolina in a primetime game? I don't even know the answer to that one. I like the 49ers in this one as much as I love the Carolina Panthers. I think the 49ers win at home in primetime. Give me the 49ers to beat the Carolina Panthers. And that wraps up our Week 12 NFL picks. Again, I'll link it down below if you'd like to join the group. All you have to do is pick the winner of each game. All right, guys, we've talked a lot of football today. So go out into the world and spread goodness and cheer. Remember to be grateful for what you got. Next week's episode will probably be released on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Stay tuned. It is Thanksgiving next week, so we'll kind of see where things lie. But go watch some football this weekend. Go out into the world and do some good. Again, go Broncos. Broncos country, let's ride. Thank you so much for listening to Fan Talk. Fan Talk, again, is a podcast you can find anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week for another edition of Fan Talk.